In Berenger's office, the co-workers argue with Boddard, a crusty skeptic who doesn't believe the news about yesterday's rhinoceroses and who thinks the journalists are sensationalizing the story to sell papers. He believes only in things that are scientifically precise. Berenger arrives late, but Daisy sneaks him the timesheet to sign. The employees ask Berenger if he saw the rhino, but Boddard bullies and insults his opinions. Boddard claims the illusory appearance of the rhino is an example of collective psychosis. They return to work, proofreading law proposals. The employees wonder about the unexplained absence of Mr. Buff, an older worker. Mrs. Buff rushes in, breathless, and says her husband has sent her a telegram from his family visit. He is sick and will be back in a few days. She tells them that she was just chased by a rhino, which is now downstairs. The rhino tries to ascend the stairs up to the office, and in the process crushes the staircase, stranding the workers. Boddard begrudgingly concedes the rhino's existence. Mrs. Buff suddenly recognizes the rhino as her husband. Daisy telephones the fire station to rescue them. The men give Mrs. Buff advice for dealing with this setback. They recommend that she collect insurance and file for a divorce, but she is too devoted to her rhino husband and vows to stay with him. She jumps down to the ground floor and, offstage, rides off on his back. Papillon, the department head, considers Buff's metamorphosis a business expense. More rhinos are reported in the town. Boddard claims he never denied the existence of the rhinos and, in trying to explain their presence, charges that a conspiracy with traitors is taking place. The firemen arrive to help them out the window, and Papillon makes alternative business plans for tomorrow, as the office is inaccessible. Boddard vows he'll solve the rhino riddle. Berenger passes on an offer to drink with Doodard so he can visit Jean. Berenger and Doodard make conspicuously polite gestures as to who shall climb out the window first. They finally leave together. Berenger's previous comments in Act One about his dreary office life come to fruition in this scene. Ionesco condemns the workplace with its insignificant busy work and gossip. Berenger and Doodard have a petty rivalry for Daisy's affections, and Boddard and Doodard compete for Papillon's good graces. Ionesco also denounces the privileging of work over people, such as Papillon's view of Buff's metamorphosis as a mere labor shortage. Ironically, Papillon means butterfly in French, contrasting sharply with Papillon's indelicate nature. The alienating influences of the workplace help explain why Berenger shows up late, and why his stale bourgeois existence is racked with ennui. However, he refuses a drink and decides to take advantage of the free afternoon to visit Jean, a sign that he is starting to lead a more committed, responsible life. Rhinoceros is generally viewed as an indictment of man's intrinsic savagery, his latent capacity for evil. Ionesco highlights this here by actually humanizing the metamorphosis of Mr. Buff. His is the first transformation that is not anonymous and shows the rhino's, Mr. Buff's, tender trumpeting to his wife. Buff means beef in French, and Daisy calls the rhinoceros an ugly animal, but here it seems as though transforming into a rhino does not totally banish his humanity. In fact, the more savage personalities belong to the men who crassly dispense pragmatic advice to the shocked Mrs. Buff, or to Boddard, who jealously tries to assign responsibility for the rhino's existence to Doodard. Boddard hints at one of the play's major themes when he labels the appearance of rhinos as a collective psychosis. His hyperbolic accusation of a conspiracy is not to be dismissed. Those who join the herd now are considered traitors, while later those who don't are the renegades. As Ionesco gauges it in the play, morality shifts to accommodate any political movement. The majority of progress is always the good side, and the minority of resistance is always the bad side. At this point in the play, those who turn into rhinos are resisting humanity and are therefore, in Boddard's eyes, bad. Yet Ionesco foreshadows Boddard's future hypocritical transformation. Like Jean, Boddard rationalizes his inconsistent behavior after the fact when he first denies the rhinos and then denies his previous denial.